Hey guys, and welcome back to another plug-in video. We haven't done one for a while, but I'm going to try and pump out a few over the next month or two. Today we are looking at HoRNet Springverb. Now I want to be transparent. I did get a NFR license for this plugin, but I'm not being sponsored to review it or anything, and all the opinions are mine. I like to be honest, and I like to show you what the plugin does and doesn't do, and you can use your own ears. Also, HoRNet plugins are very, very reasonably priced, so go check them out anyway. There might be something you want to try there. Now, this plugin looks at spring reverbs, but unlike a lot of other plugins, it isn't really going for a specific unit, more of a general physical model of spring reverbs, and it has a few features. What I want to do first is show you what it sounds like, how I've set it up. Then we'll look at the features and go through some more of the sounds. So I did this kind of reggae track the other day on my Twitch channel. My Twitch channel, I kind of hang out. Sometimes I just make music sitting Cubase for a few hours. Sometimes I play video games. It's really, really chill. If that's your kind of thing, go follow. I also have like a YouTube attached to that, which is youtube.com/JimmyJames. I'll leave that link below where some of the streams get uploaded to. Very different to this channel, which is much more serious, looking at audio plugins. That's more kind of mainstream, chill content. But if that sounds like something you'd be into, go check it out. So let's have a listen to this song. We have Reverb Send here, which is organ, guitars. There's vocals, but I muted them. The horns. And then Drum FX Verb, which is for the drums. Okay, so let's just start off by looking at some of the controls. I'm going to just use the drum reverb because the snare gives a good idea of what the reverb sounds like, as it's a much more transient instrument. So we're going to just solo the snare, and what I might do is turn off the delay throws as well. So let's just solo the snare. First thing I'm going to do is mute the reverb so you can hear what the snare sounds like dry. Right, that is not the snare. Here's the snare. So I'm using BFD3. There's a little bit of bleed, natural bleed in there, but it's mainly just the snare. Okay, let's put on the reverb. I've intentionally got shit tons of reverb on it. We're showing off what this reverb does, and this is a good kind of genre to do it. So let's quickly look at the features. On this side, you have the amount of springs. You got 1, 2, or 3, and a lot of different models have different amount of springs. Things like a twin, and a lot of the studio models have 3, but there's a lot of 2 and 1 mono model. It's important to notice they are spread out in the stereo field. So the 3, I think it's left, center, right. 2 is left, right. And the 1 is your mono. It would be cool to have a width control so you could actually control the width or something, but you can use another plugin to do that. Then we have time, which is basically, it sounds like you will with delay, right? It's the distance between each repeat. And springs kind of do have this kind of delay thing going on. Decay is basically what you think. It's how long the reverb goes for. Resonance is like a low resonance peak, but it's not like a separate filter. It's kind of how the spring propagates that peak. Brightness is the same, sort of, but with a top end and less of a resonant frequency, more of the overall top end. Density is basically a diffusion, but it does have this interesting kind of modulation thing going on. It sounds like the springs get a bit wetter, and here they're more like a delay, and then a dry wet, plus you have load and save of presets, and it is scalable, which is absolutely amazing. And now I've scaled it, I've probably entirely made this hard for myself for editing, but scalability is great because everyone has different DPI, everyone has different monitors. Can't believe more plugin manufacturers haven't figured out how to scale their plugins yet. So let's start off with going through the different springs. Let's go to the 1 first. Can you see how this is mono? Now this whole plugin has this very like laser gunny thing going on. And if you ever kicked a spring, you kind of understand the sound. Now it's a lot more hi-fi than I've heard in a lot of spring reverbs, and again I think that's because we're not modeling the saturation and we're not modeling other things going on. We're just modeling the behavior of springs, and that's going to change depending on, you know, what's surrounding it, what the springs are in, if it's a tank, if it's a pipe, all that stuff. So getting a little bit more hi-fi, but that means you can kind of adjust it more. So 2 springs. You can hear that stereo now. And 3. This gives a kind of deeper reverb. So let's leave it at 3 because it's kind of the deepest one, and let's have a look at this time control. Now this one's a little bit confusing in the sense that I thought it would be the length of the spring, but the time control is more like I said, the difference in delays, which makes it sound like you've got a bigger spring that's kind of slower in its propagation. But yeah, it gives you that kind of depth to control there. If we put the density to 0, we'll look at the density later, but if we put the density to 0, you can really hear the individual delays. If we put it to 1, now that sounds a little bit unnatural. It just sounds like a delay, a digital delay on like a stutter mode. So I do wonder if there's a way, I don't know, if an actual spring is that accurate. I doubt a spring would be that accurate, but that's, you know, it's just how the plugin works. It still sounds cool though. It's a cool effect. So let's bring that time back down to here, pull the density back up, and let's have a look at the decay control. And you can hear it rolling off and getting darker. So using these two together is how you really get that sound. So short time, but with a bit longer decay. Or really short decay and long time. More like a delay. Now let's look at this resonance control. We're going to give it a bit more so you can really hear it. Listen to that low end. Quite a big difference there. And then the brightness control. And here as you're moving it, that it is changing, seems like delay times and stuff, so it is really affecting the propagation. It isn't just a filter. Do you want tight and bright? Or dark and long? So let's have a look at the density. You heard it a bit before, but this is really changes the diffusion and a few other things. So I reckon we just go about 12 o'clock here, bring that resonance back. Let's start at 0 and slowly bring it up. Go back to 3. Now this isn't something you should really modulate because it does weird. I mean, it sounds cool. It does weird stuff, but it's more like you move into a position and listen to it for a bit. So let's go to 15. Say, sounds more reverby. Definitely got more diffusion there, and it sounds like it's spreading out the delays a bit. And I guess there's more kind of zappiness to it. We bring the decay and the time up. To me, with those settings, it doesn't sound much like a spring reverb anymore. It sounds like you're flicking it the entire time you're playing audio to it. But with the time down a little bit and the decay under control, it does remind me a lot of some spring reverbs, but a lot kind of cleaner, more hi-fi, a lot more kind of detail in the springiness. Okay, so let's listen to it on the guitar now instead of the snare. We've got a different send with different settings. Oops, I should have kept it the same to make my editing easier. Anyway. We'll just go through the different springs. It's just so you can hear it on guitar, because I love this kind of reverb on guitar. Full density, full decay. Bit darker. The full mix. Push both the reverbs up really high. Pull them back, tighten up, and mute it. So this is without reverb. So you can hear that the reverbs are doing a lot. I might just change the drum reverb a little bit. So you might notice here that I've got virtual rack on. I'm going to show you with it off and on, and I'll show you what it's kind of doing, and we're going to then overemphasize it and show you how you can get more of that analog thing and use pre and post EQ. I always use pre and post EQ with my reverbs. It gives it a very different kind of sound. So we're just going to solo all the drums, I think. All the drum channels. This is without virtual rack on. I'm just going to turn it up a bit. So we're adding distortion and compression here. It's a bit more like an analog chain. Now you might have this on your bus as well. You might have this on the actual drums. And let's add some pre and post EQ. And now it's sounding a lot more like an actual vintage piece of equipment, because there is a lot more of that kind of filtering going on. So if you look at the filtering I've got with Infinity. There might be a few cutouts here as I move this stuff around. So apologies for the audio there. But I turn them both off, and I turn virtual off. Hi-fi, very springy. Let's put the pre-EQ on, which is this one. I'll swap them around so it's in order. So we're rolling off a little bit of there. And then the post EQ. Sorry, there's a pop and crackle there. Post EQ. And then the virtual mix stuff. I've kind of got it on a little bit too much here. So it really has the kind of spring section emulated, and then you can use your other plugins to kind of go around it and create the more kind of vintage unit sound. Also, HoRNet have a bunch of kind of emulating plugins too, so I haven't tried many of them, but they might work well and on a budget too. I'm just very used to my Slate stuff. Now, one other use I found really cool is you could use it with a reverb. So we're going to, let's get this guitar again. Bring the decay down a little bit. This is something I like to do, is mix a spring reverb with a plate reverb. And you get kind of the character of the spring, but the lushness of the plate. So I'm going to put on lustrous verbs. You can bring back the dry wet, so we've kind of got the blend going on there. Could even go 1. So without the HoRNet, it's fine. It's a nice plate reverb. It's lustrous plates. It's beautiful. But with the HoRNet, maybe a bit more brightness. It's getting a bit more character. And then if you were to add some virtual mix rack to that. Let's take these off and put in London, which is a tube preamp. Okay, no reverb. And then this kind of really cool thing. In the mix. I think I was using a little bit too much memory there, so we're going to just turn off lustrous plates. So that's basically HoRNet. Like I said, it's got its own sound. It does have that kind of springiness, but does have this kind of zappiness to it too that that I've heard from some spring reverbs, but I think because it looks at just the springs, it's a little more in your face, a little more hi-fi, which you can take away. It's easier to take away frequencies and make it sound kind of more vintage than it is to make it sound more hi-fi. So not forcing you into that kind of vintage modeled kind of thing is a good take. It's an interesting take, and it gives it a point of differentiation from a lot of the other plugins on the market. So go check it out. It's ridiculously cheap at the moment. I can't even remember. It's like a few euros. Most of the HoRNet plugins are just so good value for money. Just very, very reasonable. So go check it out. I'm going to be looking at a few more reverbs with this song. A lot of free stuff. So go check out those videos too. And I'll see you next time.